In 3 days, the Women's Prize for Fiction is announcing their winner for 2022. And my goal today is to share mini spoiler-free reviews on all of the books, Longlist and Shortlist, and share some predictions and hopefully help you decide what's worth it, what's not, save some money, save some time. So last year I made a prediction that it would either be The Vanishing Half or The Piranesi, and in case you missed it, Piranesi did win. So I was close, but not on the mark. So this year I want to change that and try and guess correctly. What I think makes good books for the prize, not specifically for individual people, because I feel like you should tailor your recs depending on who you're talking to, but for the prize, so good as in good literature. This is just like a quick glance at my criteria. Actually, I'm working on a more in-depth video about what is literature to me, so watch out for that. The book needs to be impressive in its writing. I want to lose myself completely and utterly in the story. I want to really find myself immersed in it, and I feel like the way forward for that is through the book's writing. I want it to be truly special. The book should be unique in how it touches a part of you, because this is the book's way of speaking to you. It should make us feel like it's more than just reading it. It doesn't have to teach us something directly, but you should feel like it's more than just an enjoyable read, like it's a worthwhile read, like it's an important one. Even if you didn't necessarily completely love it, you should still feel like it touched a part of you, changed the way you think about the world, it gave you something. It doesn't have to be something you can exactly pinpoint, but for me, it's not only the enjoyability. I don't care how unlikable the character is, as long as they're not one-dimensional, as long as I could feel like these are real people, as long as they have reasons for their motivations. You don't have to tell me directly, but show me. Even insane people have their own reasoning. Their actions shouldn't just be to advance the plot. Although it's not only the enjoyability, that factor is important too. Don't read books for the sake of reading. Okay, now that we're in the same library somewhat, not just on the same page, let's actually rank the books. Starting in last place, The Exhibitionist. I wrote an entire rant review on this one and I will keep on talking. If this was a zombie apocalypse where the zombies ate books, I would throw this book at them. I would volunteer to throw this book at them. This is character driven all the way, and the characters are just not there. You know, we get told at the very beginning that this guy is the sensitive one. This is directly quoting from the blurb. He's the sensitive one. You know what we know at the end of the story, after we see how the dad, the father, the abusive patriarch has the whole entire family under his control? That guy is still the sensitive one. I can honestly not say more about him. The book hangs labels, and that's it. It just leaves them as labels. It doesn't really go beyond developing the main character. And although I enjoyed reading about the main character, the wife of the abuser, to quote the labels that the book uses, I enjoyed the representation. I enjoyed the diversity of her as a character. It was very new. It was very unique. All the other characters just weren't it, and it just doesn't slide in a character-driven book. More than that, not only are the characters brushed off, the dialogue is vapid. I said the dreaded word. Next, we have a book that actually made it onto the shortlist. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Sorrow and Bliss. I can see the sorrow, but where is the bliss? The sorrow that I can see is my sorrow that it actually got onto the shortlist and other books didn't. My main problem with this one was probably that it was just very, very hard to get into the rhythm, and I feel like this is just not the best book for people that want to know more about mental issues and how society treats them. I feel like there are just a lot of other better books that are easier to get into, and it's not only that it's easier to get into, it's just that the rhythm, it's like whenever you want to think of a particular moment, whenever it's actually a very emotional moment that has a lot of empathy that you could display towards the character, whenever you just need that extra time to reflect, the book speeds away. And then other moments where you're just like, okay, now I want to get back to this specific moment because I feel like it's very important for the character's development, it slows down and focuses on something else. Because of the pacing, the nuance gets lost and the enjoyability gets lost. Martha's narration, and she's a very volatile character. Honestly, the book just didn't feel coherently presented to me. Next up, the final revival of Oppo and Nev, and I will say right here, right now, that Nev does not add anything to the story, even though he's in the title. even though he's a primary character, he's very much a secondary character. He's scenery. He sets the stage for Opal to come and kill it and bury it and make a diamond out of it. Opal is a very bright and vivid and vibrant and exuberant character. She's very complex. She has her own flaws. I was utterly invested, but it just doesn't feel like the book overall brings something new to the table. If you're a fan of books like The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo and Daisy Jones and the Six, like the interview format, I'm sure you will love it. But the themes explored overall, except for Opal, who I feel is a very new character, it just felt a bit like we've heard it all before. And I mean, maybe it's just me, I'm not that much a fan of celebrity culture, but I would say that I was very engrossed in their story, so the book did manage to do that. I just don't, it's a good read, it's just not a great read, let's say. Flamingo is described as a heartwarming story, and yes, I guess it is very uplifting with its families reuniting and its like warm plot and everything gets sorted out, and it's just so great and so cozy. But at the end of the day, it just doesn't go beyond that label of a heartwarming book for me. Like, yes, it provides you with serotonin, but it's just not a book that you will think about for the rest of your life. It's just a fun book for the summer. It honestly doesn't go beyond reading for the entertainment, and I understand why it didn't make it onto the shortlist, even though it is overall like coherently presented and well written. It is still more for entertainment, and I feel really, really bad placing it above the other books like Sorrow and Bliss, which was very good in its literary excellence. It's just the enjoyability that lacked, and like the other things I said. I hated the whole he is shining sun, he is happiness, he is sadness. Like, those sort of descriptions that are like literally just metaphors stated in a row. I wish some of this would have been shown to us. That really annoyed me. Next up we have Careless, which reads exactly like YA. Fair warning in case you don't like YA. But honestly, this was like touchingly emotional and very important in the topics it touched. We have the topics of teen pregnancy and foster care, and it was very important to me that the topic of foster care was actually explored by someone who was in foster care. I absolutely agree with the author. I feel like a lot of the times we just put in that character who went through foster care and we use it as an excuse to like justify their bad actions. Oh, it's the childhood trauma, and it doesn't go beyond that. It honestly felt really realistic, and I feel like a lot of the characters there will resonate with a lot of people. For example, the character of the best friend, Ethel, who is an immigrant to this country, but she was born here, so it's her parents that are immigrants. And honestly, like the part about not wanting to disappoint your parents and working so hard, but then doing something for yourself and feeling kind of guilty about it, like it just felt really personal on a whole other level. This is truly a book that you can't put down at all, and while it does feel at times like overly childish with its writing, in the context of the narrator, it makes sense. It's very coherent, and while I don't think it's like fully award worthy, the characters also don't go beyond their roles. We have Boy, he is a boy, he is the boy who got her pregnant, he's called Boy. But I also think this book could be really therapeutic for a lot of people, so at the end of the day, it's not on the award, whatever. I think it's still worth spending your money on if any of these topics feel relevant. Okay, Build Your House Around My Body, the next one. I know I will get evil looks at for this one, but seriously, you know what, I'm just gonna put on sunglasses and pretend I didn't hear this because this needs to be said. The book itself, set in Vietnam, covers such interesting themes, like what makes women women, something so like feminine and something so raw and human in its nature, and the history, the rich characters that it evokes, the landscapes that it paints. It's so poignant and it's just so brilliant in its writing. If the final revival of Opal and Nev didn't bring anything new to the table, this book demolished the table and, well, built a house. It's very good, but it's also very good up to a certain point. I felt like the metaphors were brilliant, but at certain moments in time, the simplicity would have worked better. It's not that it was too much, I really enjoyed it, it's just that it was just not very suited, let's say. Like, okay, the hidden messages, the imagery, chef's kiss, but just sometimes I felt like we should get back to the plot and the characters a little bit. All here for the author showcasing her talent, her ability as a writer. We get back to the plot because you build this intrigue and then you just don't carry it out. You just focus on other things and the characters. It just didn't have a moment for me when I said this is the book that I was looking for. It's good, but it's not perfect, and it's not what I was looking for personally to win this award, I guess. I spent like 20 minutes thinking about what comes next, The Sentence or This One Sky Day. This One Sky Day is Papa Show in the USA. I honestly cannot decide, but I guess I'll start with This One Sky Day. This One Sky Day, it was good, but it didn't live up to all the hype that was built up around it. Like, you know, this label of the ultimate magical realism. I mean, it's One Sky Day, it's just not One Sky Life, you know? Okay, that was a bad comment. This book felt like summer personified. I really liked it in that regard. The descriptions utterly transported you. The characters were all so exuberant and so joyful, and it really felt like you could smell it, you could hear it, you could see it. All of the senses were really there. It was so phantasmagorical in its idea, in its execution. I guess my main issue here was that even with all this, I just never felt completely integrated with the island of Poppy Show. It just covered a lot. The plot was a lot, the characters were there. The issue here was that it actually bit off so much that I thought that maybe it wasn't so palatable for the reader, in the regard that it was just you wanted to see everything as the reader, because it had so much, like the plot points, the characters, it was all there. And when the book of course focused on something more than others, it just felt painful since we had to give that up. And then other things I think could have been cut, like other moments. And I get that this is a work of love, 15 years, of course it's hard to edit, but I just felt like we needed to edit more. The Sentence is a review that is driven by spite. I am personally furious at this book because it was perfect. It was perfect up to a point. It was just so unique, so brilliant in the emotions it elicited. It had truly original characters. The writing was there. If you like books, if you like reading, this is a book that I think will be right up your alley, because we have a ghost that haunts a bookshop. I mean, it was so perfect. I was so in love with it. I was convinced it was going to be an easy 5 stars. 2/3 of the way through, the pandemic happened. And as the pandemic messed up our lives, the pandemic messed up this book. And yeah, whatever. Maybe I'm just not ready to talk about it. Maybe I'm not ready to reflect on it. But in the context of this book, this made me absolutely furious. You give me something that has so much magic, that has so much spark in its like overallness. That's not even a word. I'm just making up words. But seriously, the book felt so special. It had that something unique that you can't place. It had that quality of, yes, I will reflect on this for a long time to come. And then the pandemic came, and it felt like the author just didn't know where to go, so she went down the very relevant route, of course. I just feel like it killed a little bit of the magic, and it was just such a sudden shift that maybe we just never got back into the rhythm of the story. We're about halfway through, and it's getting very, very hard to choose, and also I've talked in a lot of detail for a very long time. So I think that now I will bunch the books together, because from here on it goes to books that aren't on the shortlist and that I think are very good, and books that are on the shortlist. So I will review them and just make the reviews a bit more snappier. Creatures of Passage is a very powerful tale set in Washington, D.C. that draws heavily on Egyptian mythology. And Egyptian mythology as a mythology has so much to offer in its stories. Like, it feels like everything is infused with magic. It's fascinating, and I feel like this book absolutely does it justice with its vivid imagery, with the breadth of imagination that it provides. The book felt like a work of art, and every brushstroke, every little bit of paint contributed to the beautiful image overall. And it's only when we hung it and when we framed it that we realized just how complex and how detailed this book was. Even more, because we saw how all the tiny little elements came together. It's a shame that the conclusion was so fast wrapped, because I was absolutely eating it up. I could have read a lot more. So yeah, that's just a small point for me, but I think this is absolutely worth spending your money on. And probably out of all the magical realism here, I think this is one of the strongest. Salt Lake and Paper Palace Both got 5 stars from me, and I am salty, yes, deliberate word choice, that both of them didn't make it onto the shortlist. I'll start with Salt Lick. This book needs a sign pointing to it saying, read me, because Salt Lick is set in a society that's not quite dystopian, but feels very dystopian. Rather, it's just if we continue moving in the wrong direction. This is the exact definition of that book, that like greatness that you know it's there and that you will feel for the rest of your life, and there will come a point where you will suddenly realize that this is what I wanted to get from this book. It's just very, think about it for the rest of your life, in how it's presented, in how it's written, in just the overall package. It's like a little gift wrapped up in a bow and gifted to you, the reader, because it's very enjoyable, it's very brilliant, and I very much recommend it. It covers so many topics and difficult themes in a way that never feels preachy, and all those things I picked up and complained on the other books, like, oh, it doesn't really focus enough, or it bites off more than it can chew. Here it was perfect. The world building was there, everything was there. I literally have no problems with this, other than the fact that maybe it was a bit slow paced, but if you're willing to plow on through the slow pace, I think it's absolutely worth it. The cows will sing to you, and you will genuinely feel like you got a lot out of it. Paper Palace was utterly delicious. I have no word for it. This is, if you like drama, read this book and you will be overloaded with happiness, because this book really said, I'll give you a main character who's a complex woman, who's cheating on her husband, who has a dark past. And when I say dark past, I don't mean like, oh, she was just abused as a child, like that kind of dark past. Oh no, there's more to it than that. Honestly, this book, the entertainment value is there, the literary value is somewhat there. I can't say anything more coherently about it than this, because there's just a lot of gray stuff, gray areas, and it'll go into the spoilery arm. This book will make you say, it made me think, and it's enjoyable. It's like YouTube, it's like School 2.0. The thing is, it's not revolutionary literature with a capital L. Even though I did want it to be on the shortlist, I understand why it didn't make it there. Again, more entertainment rather than like excellence overall. But I do think that compared to other books, like for example, the final revival of Oppo and Nelv, even though that covered perhaps more universal topics, I do think that this was quite good compared to those as well. Okay, now I will move on to the reviews for the shortlist, and I want to say a short word about Remote Sympathy before that. So while I was making this video, actually, because I'm making it before I'm uploading it, well, obviously, I haven't quite finished the book. So because I'm not 100% sure, I don't want to share my review quite yet, and I will just put it in the description box. Alright, I'm bunching it all together because these 4 books, in my eyes, are the strongest contenders for the award, and not just because they're on the shortlist, just in general. So Great Circle, historical fiction about a female aviator defying all odds. It's moving, it's touching, it's original, it's telling a story that nobody ever told before. It approaches everything in a way that makes you say, wow, this is the extra push, this is the extra motivation, the message I have been looking for, because it just covers so much in a way that feels so important to you as a person. It's very emotional, and it's also very thought-provoking. However, it is also 600 pages. It's a brick of a book. You could probably kill someone with it if you dropped it on their head. And I guess that the present day moments, because this book had a lot of shifts in time, like the other books actually, I feel like that's a popular trend this year. I don't know, they just didn't live up to the standard of the female aviator bits, so I think maybe this could have used some editing. It's not perfect, it's not for everyone, it requires some effort, but I do think the commitment is worth it. The Book of Form and Emptiness is great. Not a circle, but great nonetheless. It's postmodern, fair warning, but I love that, and I loved every aspect of it. It really is a book for those in love with books, and I just think that what sets it apart from the other books is that it's heartwarming, but it goes beyond that label. It really shows that books that are described as heartwarming or uplifting in the blurb can have substance, can have actual content in it. It just really forces you to think about a lot, and it's so deep in its emotional context. Perhaps it could be very hard for a lot of people because of this. However, is it shoving Zen Buddhism down our throats? Yes. Do I think that this could be a problem for many people because they don't want to accept this way of life? Yes, but it's a good book. It's not only a good book, it's a great book. The question is it the book that the Women's Prize for Fiction judges are looking for? And that's the $1,000,000 question, because I'm very lost on where I would put this book in its chances of winning. The Island of Missing Trees made me realize why everyone loves Elif Shafak so much. Not to show off, but absolutely to show off, because now I feel validated since Elif Shafak liked my review of her book and also 10 other posts with other reviews and other literary content. And that just means so much, because after reading this book, I really fell in love with it. This is truly something that you haven't seen before, in the fact that the narrator is a tree. Yes, you've heard that right. And it also has that generational stories, those forbidden love stories, that deep atmosphere of like historical fiction, something based in conflict, this over Cyprus, for example. I have no words. Like, she took all the topics that are hot right now, she took the frying pan and she poured more oil onto it, and we watched everything explode in simmering fireworks. The book had its negative aspects, but I think that the positives very much outweighed the bad parts. The Bread the Devil Ned made me absolutely stagger under the genuine raw strengths of the narrator and the dialect, like the first person dialect that is used. If you read How the One-Armed Sister Sweeps the House from last year's shortlist, I believe, then you would probably think that it's similar. However, I dare say that this book did it better. I wasn't a fan of the fact that it could be misinterpreted as oh, just leave everything to fate, the abuse will just stop if you stick it out. I don't like that. But I do admire the book for flaunting the conventions of such novels. In novels of domestic abuse, we expect certain outcomes, and I feel like the book really did its best to stay away from those conventions, to really say, this is it, this is what you want to hear, because this is the stories of the women that we don't usually tell, and it's important that they're in the narrative. Time for the final prediction. The judges are looking for accessibility, excellence, and originality. And I think The Bread the Devil Ned, The Islands of Missing Trees, The Book of Form and Emptiness, and Great Circle have all of that. And also, even though I don't like Sorrow and Bliss, it's right down there at the bottom of my preferences, I do think it's a very strong contender too. I honestly have trouble deciding right now between what has more chances of winning, The Bread the Devil Ned or The Book of Form and Emptiness, because even though The Book of Form and Emptiness has more of that like literary originality, literary excellence as a book, but The Bread the Devil Ned is immersive, and we never had such a strong and just bright narrator before, such a narrator with such a distinct voice, and it's also a debut novel, so I am very impressed. I honestly feel really lost now that it comes to the decider. Okay, I'm giving Ruth Suzuki's The Book of Form and Emptiness second place as my guess, and Great Circle as first place, and The Bread the Devil Ned as third. I'm literally praying that it's one of these three and that I'm not completely wrong. However, if I am wrong, because ultimately it is about the winner, and I am placing my bets on Great Circle, I accept my loss and hope to do better next year. So please let me know in the comments who you think will win. I hope you enjoyed this video or found it helpful. I hope now you know what's worth spending money on, what's not worth spending money on, in my opinion. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next week, and let's look out for the announcement. Oh, see you on the live stream.